right, let's get into it. Centaurus, CTM, first nickel sulfate. Sulfate produced from their pilot plant program, which has concluded. Very exciting project this in Brazil. JD, take it away, mate. What's happening in CTM territory?
Yeah, so you sort of covered it. They're going through all the met test working at the moment. So just to rewind a bit and give a bit of scope on what Centaurus is trying to do, they're going one step further from just producing concentrate. They're trying to turn that into a nickel sulfate product, which is the key component in batteries. And that sort of ties in with their whole theme of being very ESG focused. So you can think of this somewhat akin to the lithium players trying to turn spodumene into hydroxide. They're getting that downstream value, trying to capture a bit more value, but obviously along the way, adding a bit of technical risk, a bit of complexity to the process. So the test work so far has shown that they can execute it quite well. They can get a cobalt and a zinc hydroxide product. And it's something we see in Voisey's Bay, Raglan, these other sort of well-renowned mines around the world, creating these byproducts. So from an economics point of view for the project, neither these zinc or these cobalt products were previously incorporated in the project's economics. So what that means, it's something we touched on talking about Ernest Henry a couple of weeks back. These byproduct credits are credits other than the main product, in this case nickel sulfide, that the company will produce. And they can subtract that in their costs that they show to the market, and ultimately they can show that they are a lower cost nickel producer because they subtract the revenue they're gaining from this zinc product, from this cobalt product, off of their costs for the operation at Jaguar. So getting into a bit more of the backstory now about Centaurus. So if you just pull up a chart, you'll see that the stock's off about 25% over the past couple months. Now, I think that's on the back of a couple different things. The DFS has been delayed. Now, this was initially planned to be out in the last quarter of 2022. So we're now expecting that to be in the last quarter of this year and final investment decision in quarter 3 of calendar year 2024. So
are they just drilling it out a bit further? What was the rationale for the delay there, JD?
Yeah, I think there's a couple different points of view you could take. If you're an optimist, which I know you're not, Trav, you could say
Far from it.
You could say that they've had quite a bit of success at the drill bit. You could say that they're trying to optimize that production profile. That leads to the delays where they're trying to see what sort of mine life, what sort of amount of 1,000 tons per annum this thing can produce. A pessimist like yourself might say that they're having potential met issues, which I think they've largely cleared up. That's what we've seen today, and we're going to see the last assays from these various hydroxide products within 4 weeks, the company's flagged. You could also say that they're suffering from some sort of permitting or offtake issues. I'll get into the offtake a bit more later on. And you'd also maybe question why they're going down this nickel sulfate route. We've seen a lot of other companies that produce a nickel concentrate product, and that's that. They sell that to a smelter, they sell that to a refiner. But Centaurus, they're trying to, like I said, capture that value downstream. Another reason...
Probably a note as well when you're talking about the 20% off as well, that nickel price is down 20% this year so far. It was about $31,000 a tonne US at the start of the year, and it's
exactly. There's
now.
multiple reasons why the stock price is down 20 to 30%, and another one of that could be the cash position. So they did a pretty hefty raising in January of 2022. So they raised $75 million at $1.16. And just for reference, they're now trading in the high 80s, and for the past month they've been closer to the low 80s. So at the end of the last quarter, this report came out probably a week or so ago, they had $23 million of cash left. They've got 6 diamond drill rigs and an RC rig. So if you just look at that cash spend profile over the 5 or so quarters since they did that last raising, they're spending between 10 and 15 million bucks every quarter. So that would sort of imply that they might need to do another raise and do it quite soon just to sort of see them through to that final investment decision, which is a bit over a year away, so maybe a year and a quarter away still. So I'm sure the company would be pretty torn about having to do it on a price that's like a discount to what they've been trading for quite a while now. But yeah, they're they're just going to have to bite the bullet, in my opinion, and raise that amount that'll see them through. Now, the other thing I mentioned before was the offtake. So Vale, the huge Brazilian miner, vended this project into Centaurus a good few years ago now, and part of the agreement was that they would have the offtake rights. Now, I believe the initial idea was that Centaurus wouldn't be producing a nickel sulfate product, because I think Vale, from my point of view, they'd have a lot less sort of value that they can add to a nickel sulfate. Previously, the idea might have been a bit more similar to what we see or what we previously saw at Mincor, having the offtake with BHP and selling it to their sort of smelter. So they might try and seek some sort of compensation, or alternatively, Centaurus might try and utilise the infrastructure that Vale has in the country, rather than have to truck the product, I think 900 or so Ks to the port. So we'll sort of see what comes of that. But I'm sure once this offtake agreement is sort of fixed, then that's a sort of another tick of approval in the right direction. So overall, I'm a fan of the project. I think the team's done quite a good job. I'm pretty frustrated with the delays that they've seen. But nickel sulfate is quite complex. It's definitely going down the right path to do all these checks, rather than have the engineering team build a plant that's not quite optimized. And yeah, the project looks great. Nickel sulfide, these projects are in demand. We've seen this by the M&A in the space. I don't really mind Brazil. I'm not sure what your guys' thoughts are on Brazil as a jurisdiction, but in particular, the state that they're in is a known mining state. And I'm really just focused on that DFS and the maiden reserve in the final quarter of this year. And I really want to see that done with no more delays. I want to see the management keep to their word now. It's already been a year of delays with that DFS. And if they can stick to that, I think there's a bit of upside there.
Well, it looks like the Carajás is, as you said, a very populated mining area, and the offtake with Vale. And I think by the sounds of what you're saying with the byproduct side of things with the processing, looks like do you think there's a lot of upside for the initial 2021 scoping study?
There is a bit of upside. I've read some analyst reports, and they flag, I think one number that stood out to me was payability of 107%. So for those wondering, the payability is the amount of product that the company gets paid for from what they produce from their ore.
So is that 107% of the nickel gets paid
It's of
out?
the nickel, and that's incorporating the
other ones.
Extra revenue you'd get from the cobalt and the zinc hydroxide. So that's an interesting sort of number that stands out when you read a report like that.
Looks a pretty good rate of return on capital. Like they would at $11 a pound nickel, which is what it is at today, $2.6 billion MPV with 102% IRR. So
yeah, look at the grade of the project, right? Like it's easy to see how the economics stack up. And by all accounts, they've got a pretty good working relationship with Brazilians, and a huge Brazilian workforce sort of humming away over there as well. I think it'll be an interesting one to watch that's on that Lassonde curve at the moment. And keen to see him become a producer.
Yeah, well, they're only behind BHP. All BHP's got all the top nickel mines. Then it's Centaurus.
Yeah, well, for those people watching on YouTube, we'll chuck up a chart, and you can see they're 108 million tonnes at just under 0.9% nickel, and that's just been growing steadily every half year or year. They're coming out with sort of upgrades. So we'll see what sort of converts over to that resource later. They're now talking open pittable type of project, and with an underground component, but a lot of that focus previously was much more underground focus, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think there's 7 pits by the looks of the plan.
Something along that.
And then lines. I think their updated resource kicking them into over 1 million tonne of contained nickel will be a big kicker for this price.
Have they still got that half decent undeveloped iron ore project that no one gives them value for, JD?
Yeah, I wouldn't say no one gives them value for it. It's hard to say obviously what the market ascribes to that, but I have seen some analysts that put a figure in the $40 to $50 million range. It's not something I've looked too far into. Focused really on the nickel side of this company.